All right. Hello, Voice Summit. How's it going? We are going to be talking about voice search. So we're going to do some quick introductions and then jump into the conversation. And we'll save some time at the end for questions as well. So I'll start off. My name is Dustin Coates. I am the voice search go-to-market lead. It is a mouthful at a company called Algolia. I'm a little bit different than the rest of the people on this panel, which you'll hear about soon. Algolia is a hosted search API. So if you've ever used Twitch or Periscope or thousands of different other websites and apps, you've actually used Algolia. We power their search engine. And so we've been around for a few years now. We power 40 billion searches every single month. And we're really beefing up our voice capabilities.
Hi, I'm Katherine Ong. I run an agency called WO Strategies. I've been doing SEO for about 14 years, marketing for 20-something. I did a session earlier today about Google Home and Google Voice Search and Voice SEO.
My name is Adam Edwards. I'm the head of SEO at Reprise, which is a digital agency based in New York, but 70 offices around the world.
And I'm Mark Pappas, Vice President of Search Marketing at CMI Media, which is part of WPP Health and Wellness. I cover organic search, paid search, as well as social media marketing for our clients, primarily in the pharmaceutical space.
Great. So maybe, Katherine, we'll start off with you first. What do you see as the major opportunity or perhaps hurdle in voice search today?
From a hurdle perspective, I actually think the UX is pretty crappy, personally. If you went to my session, you know that I wrote the first research report on consumer adoption of wearable computers. So my tracking of inputs from human beings into computers actually goes back to 2003 or 2002. So I have a home, but I think the thing is kind of crappy. I use it as a speaker. So anyway, I think the usability thing is potentially going to limit people using it. But the opportunity to be found, at least in the Google environment, is huge. If you've buttoned up your SEO, you actually should be found naturally. Google has started to just email webmasters. With a couple of clicks, you can kind of claim your action in Google Home and Google Assistant if you've already set up structured data, which if you're working with an SEO, we would have told you for the last couple of years to do that anyway. So I think the opportunity is huge if you're already doing good SEO. And if you're not already doing good SEO, I'd encourage you to.
And what do you two think?
Definitely. What was the question again? Sorry.
What are some of the opportunities?
Some of the opportunities. So I think when you talk to people here, actually, a show of hands, how many people here are marketers? Okay, good amount. How many are developers? How many are students? Designers? A lot of different angles. I was a journalism major, although I do marketing now, and I always try to start with a why are we doing this? And there's a lot to be said for there's 50 million devices out there, but where can we take the ability to use voice? It's not just about voice skills, which gets a lot of focus here. Probably that's because it's sponsored in part by Amazon. But if you use a Google Home, they're trying to answer questions. They're trying to solve people's problems, not necessarily get you to buy something. And so when you think of it that way, literally it's a whole new search experience. What are we trying to help people do as opposed to a particular action by itself? There's lots of opportunities there.
Yeah, and I think kind of to Katherine's point a second ago, it's like what's the point? Like, what are we doing this for? Because right now, the way the UI is with voice search, you can't really take many actions. You can get answers, and that's pretty much about it. I mean, right now, it's kind of like when we first got mobile phones, and we could actually call people, and it was shocking. And now we can stream full HD video, do everything imaginable on our mobile phones. We're kind of at that phase with voice search and with voice assistants, where it's like the fun new toy, but it's we're just starting to test the water to see what we can really do with this. And as far as the opportunities, I mean, again, going back to what some of these guys just said, you can check all the boxes and have your site optimized from a technical perspective. You can have the fastest page load speed, but if you don't have the right content on your site, then what's the point of like doing all of that? So you really got to make sure that you're looking at what the users want. You want to make sure that you're answering questions that are being asked. Lots of times marketers, think in marketing speak, and that's not the way that people are looking for information. So there's lots of ways that, you can really do a deep dive into a content strategy and make sure that you have that content on your website or as a part of your skill to answer these questions and actually make what you're trying to do useful to the end user.
Okay, and so Mark, you mentioned there's not much in voice that you can do right now, and I'll ask a little provocative question. What's the point of focusing on it right now? Should we just shut the panel down now and walk away?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of like a change in funnel. Like, we're with typical search, we're thinking with like the awareness, the consideration, getting down to like the conversion. Now it's more of like a how, what, when, why is the type of questions that really like we're answering. So I think voice is completely changing the funnel. And as far as what we want to do, I mean, I think it's pretty much like up in the air right now. A lot like if we're looking at like, and this is another thing where things get confused a lot, at least from the sessions I've been at this conference, is like when we're talking voice search versus like voice skills. Voice skills is pretty much endless. You can do, whatever you can imagine there. Voice search, it's usually like just providing that answer to a user. And to your point, we're basically just providing information. But, again, like getting away from the assistants or the actual like in-home smart speakers, if we're looking at like virtual or digital assistants like, Google Assistant, Siri, people are still doing, voice searches there, but you can actually take an action and click on that site and go a little bit deeper. So it's just another entry point to get to your website that's already there. So on that side of things, there's actions you can definitely take.
And Adam, from the executive side, I'm sure you think a lot about ROI. How are you thinking about the ROI of voice SEO today?
Sure. Well, first off, as Katherine mentioned, if you are doing your SEO well, there's a good chance that you might actually be ranking, quote unquote, in voice search. There's only one result. But by marking your site up with schema and editing properly, if you ask a Google Home at least a question, there's a chance that your company might come up. Are you trying that? I don't know if anyone is. You should. But when you think about the ROI, in this case, it's really about first mover advantage, or at least being early. If you're thinking about answering questions, you have the chance to be that default authority. Because if you ask Google Home a question, there's a chance it'll say, like, according to X company, such and such and such. With voice skills or with Amazon, you might be able to get the default product. And so if you think what that potentially means, we're not looking at a list of 10 blue links and some ads. We are in a conversation. And so in this instance, if you can optimize your product properly, you can be the then default choice, and then you subscribe to a potential product. Especially, this is huge for CPG, where you order something over and over. Getting in now is really important. Just similar to like when we had the year of mobile for 5 years in a row. But when we had the App Store, being at the top of that category early on really makes a difference and makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I would just add that if you have a podcast and you're not marking up your stuff so that you can be auto-played in Google Assistant, I would do that because it's really easy. Once you mark it up, you should get an email, and then your users, if they're on Android, can go ahead and play your podcast without opening up any separate app. So that's kind of cool. And then the announcement yesterday was that if you're a news site, you can actually mark up what stuff you want Google to read to your readers. There's extra markups. You could say, if somebody is asking a particular question about this news article, I want you to read this snippet. So there's a few really actionable things if you want to make sure you're addressing your audience when they're looking for you. But at this point, I think it's probably a bigger opportunity for news and recipes and podcasts and that kind of stuff in the Google environment.
And what mistakes do you three see people doing now when looking at voice search and voice SEO?
My answer is going to be really quick. I work with a lot of brands, and most of them don't have their SEO buttoned up in general. So voice search is this thing that's like far down the road. And I work with really big brands that you think would have it buttoned up, and I did it when I worked at Ketchum too. And anyway, they have opportunity. I can see they've got voice search queries, but they got bigger fish to fry.
I think being overwhelmed, it's easy to come and see some of the presentations here, which can get technical, and then think, oh, well, we're so far away, we haven't done like a mobile site, or we haven't transitioned to an app or whatever. But that's actually not a barrier or a barrier. You should be thinking about measuring at this point. And the tools aren't great. There's not a lot of data available, but just imagine if you have one of these devices, or even trying on your phone and seeing what happens. Is a really great experience. Well, actually, it's not a great experience, but it's a good experience to see what happens and then say, hey, for instance, if you're trying to find out about allergies and you ask your Amazon Echo, it might recommend a skill for you to try. And if you hadn't thought about that, even if you don't have something, you need to see what your competitors are doing or who's in that space.
Yeah, and I think just not taking action now is the biggest mistake, because it's pretty much wide open. Everybody's out there trying to optimize their websites, but they're not really thinking voice first right now. And I keep going back to the content strategy, but if you're not really answering the questions that your users are asking related to your brand or the category that you're in, then you can do every single technical optimization known to man, but you're not going to show up for anything. So you really need to dig into how people are looking for your product. I mean, the way I'm sure all four of us search completely differently. And again, lots of times marketers are like in their bubble of like their product and just assume that, everybody knows what it is in like the industry. So you really need to make sure that you're like doing a deep dive and looking at how people are actually searching related to the category that you're in.
If you've been to a few sessions, you might have heard of voice user interface, VUI. But I actually, at least when you're first starting out with a voice-enabled device or a smart speaker, I actually think of it as no UI, because we're so used to using a computer for 20 or more years, and there's a lot of prompts that you get. There's a fixed menu that you can see you get a general sense of what things are available. And with Google has trained us over the years with autocomplete, and so when you're trying to think about what to do, it will actually recommend things along the way. But with a voice interface, you don't have that. You literally have not even a blank screen, you have nothing. You have a speaker to talk to or a microphone. And you need to be able to try out things to see what happens.
And how do you figure out how your users what they're looking for, even how they're asking for it as well?
So I'm going to give you a tip. There's a great site out there, if you're not familiar with it, called Answer the Public, and that helps you think about things in different questions. And there are some tools that you can use to get a sense of what types of questions are being asked, whether it's Google Keyword Planner or some of the other SEO and SEM tools out there. As voice becomes more ubiquitous, searches are actually getting longer again. And so anything that starts with a question word, there's a good chance that that was a voice query.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to look inside Google Search Console for your current website and filter for who, what, when, where queries to see if you're actually getting voice search queries. I have a couple clients that are, because full questions are showing up in their Google Search Console account. So you can make the leap of judgment that that's probably a voice search query. And then additionally, I love Answer the Public. The only pro tip is that there's also a keyword.io plugin that you can use in Chrome that will overlay actual numbers. So you can see volume along with the Answer the Public data, which makes it a little bit more useful.
Yeah, and that's like one of the big changes with voices. As far as like desktop and mobile search, you're just typing in keywords and like looking to get results. With any kind of voice assistant or with an Alexa or Google Home, you're speaking in full grammatically correct sentences most of the time. You're not just yelling keywords at a box. So you really got to make sure that you're asking and answering these questions on the website and not focusing on just shoving like a keyword in your title tag and calling it a day. Like you really need to make sure that you have that like full question asked and pretty much answered clearly and concisely on your website.
And do you foresee people changing their textual queries as well as they become more used to voice and conversational queries?
I think it's giving people a little, I was going to say sense of trust, but like they actually think it could work now, because before there just wasn't enough content indexed to be able to show a result. And 10, 15 years ago, a lot of the search engines actually eliminated some of the most important words from a query, like question words, like the versus these. These kind of differentiators actually make a huge difference in what types of results to show. And so it's harder to measure because Google will still give you like an autocomplete type of interface, so people will still be kind of prone to self-selecting. But I think as the search engines get better at semantically understanding content and having that experience with voice, I think you'll see people experiment more again.
I think that's the actual big tip that we've been kind of circling around, is most webmasters and most marketers, I don't think quite realize how smart Google is about your content, and expect that the content that you wrote 5 years ago is still going to rank well now. There's been this huge big change over the last 2 years-ish, as machine learning became part of the Google algorithm, and they're user testing every bloody query to see if it works for the end user. I've seen huge shifts in my clients. The ones that have always had good quality content continue to rank, and the ones that don't. So Google has these Google human raters, part-time people that are employed, so does Bing, that are employed to evaluate search result quality. So they do it after the effect, and whatever their feedback is then gets baked back into the algorithm. But there's human beings involved that actually look at particular search results and click through to each website and are supposed to ask questions like, is this good stuff? If you have not read the Google Human Rater guidelines and you write web copy, you should go Google it and find it and read it. And they have an update for voice search queries. So that's what we've been sort of circling around here, that the content distinctly has to be better and has to actually answer your users' queries more than it ever has.
And on the developer side, one of the things that I've heard a lot this week and before this week as well is how do we drive more traffic to our skills and to our actions? Are you starting to do SEO on that as well?
Sure. I mean, popularity is a huge component, so that's another reason to get in early. Similar to the App Store, it's not just about relevance. If you think back to Google's original patent application that really set them apart from the rest of the crowd, if you think back, there was Alta Vista, there was Lycos, there were tons of search engines, but what made Google unique is that they recognized the value of links. It basically said, you can talk all you want about yourself, but we need to recognize some sort of authority, and so links are kind of that vote. Right now, probably one of the best things that the voice ecosystem has is the number of people using the skill.
I might also say that I've seen a few instances where you might be a top-ranking site even though you don't have the most links. You might have an equal amount of domain authority as other people that are ranking, but you can actually be ranking above the competitors with less links to that direct page. It's because you answered the question better and you competed better in that real live user testing machine learning thing that's going on. So yeah, just an FYI that you have to answer the searcher's intent. So not just the keyword stuff, but what did the person actually want? What was that burning desire question behind that keyword phrase? Are you answering that?
Also, thinking back about testing and measuring, if you go to search for skills, there are instances where you're not going to get hardly any results at all, like under 10. When's the last time you did a Google search for like something specific and you got under 10 results? Not too many times. So it's a good time to be visible.
And so, Adam, you talked about getting more skill, getting more action usage. How are you doing that for the people you're working with, getting their initial traction?
Well, for my team, it's coming back to working with clients to get budget allocated, which is really critical. When you think about all the potential things that people could search for or a company can do with their budgets, you have to think about the use case and what kind of ROI. And so sometimes it's not something as simple as, like for SEO, we can look at search volume, how many people are looking for this every month or year. But for to invest in like a big skill that doesn't have to be a big investment, but if you want to actually plot how many people are using voice skills and voice devices, you know, you can do some quick ROI napkin math to figure out like this is worth tackling.
And Catherine or Mark, do you see yourselves doing any more skill store or action directory SEO over the next year?
I mean, as far as the SEO side goes, I sound like a broken record, but I just keep going back to like the content you have as far as like describing your app or your skill, whatever it is that you have there. But I mean, as far as like launching skills, it's also key to make sure that you're, you know, looped in with your social media team, with the paid search team, because you get instant visibility there to maybe drive a user to like learn more about the skill or enable the skill. You know, Amazon is starting to roll out slowly, like, you know, ad opportunities within Amazon to drive awareness of a skill or drive off-site to, from Amazon to a product they might not sell. So there's a lot of new opportunities that are coming around to drive awareness. You know, in the pharma space, you know, paid search is key, social is key, but then also like making sure you're working with like your, you know, display media team, your print team for doing any kind of like in-office like displays that this new skill is available. One of the sessions we were at earlier is related to Alexa skills within healthcare. It's like one of the biggest drivers of adoption is if a doctor recommends the use of it. So making sure like your the Salesforce team is actually, you know, bringing this up when they're doing these details at a doctor's office, that it's there. I think there's a lot of ways. SEO is definitely like a big part of it, but you definitely got to make sure you have like, I hate using the word holistic, but that you have like a holistic strategy through paid, through organic, and through social as well.
And Catherine, when we were prepping for this panel, you talked a lot about, or you touched briefly at least, on brand voice. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that impacts search?
That's my little Google prediction. So Google has recently, recent to me anyway, has a head of podcasting. They want to like double the number of podcast listeners in the next couple of years. Interesting. And then only because I've watched Google for 14 years, so I'm always sort of interested in where their trajectory is going. So they've made it easier for audio content to be played in Google Assistant, so they've reduced the friction. They've also reduced the friction on even discovering your audio content, as my non-tech clients have suddenly got these emails saying, oh, my podcast is available for an action, right? So it's not building a skill with Alexa. It's sort of just kind of giving you something you already had. So I think Google's really interested in indexing and surfacing audio content. I think they think that particularly in the voice interface, there's answers there, critical answers to burning questions, and they want to be able to figure out how to pull it out and give it to the users. So I think there's an opportunity to make it easier by using structured data markup for Google to find your audio content. Also marking up who's talking, because maybe it's the person you're interviewing that's got the burning answer, the great answer that Google wants to surface. And then I lost my train of thought. Was your original question?
Just where voice brand or
brand voice, yeah.
rather.
The other thing I think Google is moving toward is actually potentially using your brand's voice as a result, as it gets replayed back to the user. So I think that's where Google could potentially go, because as they're starting to surface this audio content from you, I think that if it sounded like your brand, they would surface that potentially and play it in the future. I don't think that's a huge leap to go from where they are now and where they are in like a year or a year and a half. So if you haven't documented your brand voice now, just even old school brand voice to make sure all your social handles sound the same and your SEO sounds the same and your paid search sounds the same, you should totally do that now. I work with plenty of brands that haven't even done that. So just make sure that across all your marketing channels, you know what it should sound like, and then you've taken that next leap to be like, I think I want it to be female, and I think I want it to talk fast, and I think, or whatever. But actually documenting that, I think, would position you well for this future moment. I mean, we can't all be Flow from Progressive, right? But for some brands, that might actually make sense to document it.
And Catherine, who do you think is doing a good job at that? You mentioned Progressive, but maybe someone who's doing it not on the cheap, but who's doing it in a way that people here can aspire to.
Yeah, on the cheap. I think all of my examples are the bigger brands. So Airbnb has got a distinctive brand voice that you can track across all their channels. You can kind of get a vibe for that. In my presentation, I talk about Old Spice. You should actually check out their meta description and search. it actually talks about man smells that makes you smile. So they've done a really good job of tracking through their brand voice across the board. But all the ones I can think about are big brands. And it's not that I don't work with big brands, they just don't run TV ads. So it's like the TV ad big brands seem to maybe have documented it a bit better, but all the other brands that don't run TV ads regularly are catching up.
It'll be interesting to see if kind of the social profiles that some companies have built out will translate into voice. Like Wendy's is like pretty famous for being a little snarky, as is some of the others in that space. So even, we might see digital voice kind of eclipse the TV voice.
And Mark, I'll ask you a similar question. You touched on content a lot so far. Who do you think is doing a good job in really creating a great content strategy?
I mean, there's tons and tons of examples. Like going back to and I always use this example, like farm-specific clients. I mean, WebMD is pretty much, you type anything into Google related to any kind of health condition, and it takes you instantly to WebMD. They have literally a piece of content for everything. Livestrong has, it shocks me how they literally show up in the top 3 results for every possible random, longer tail health search. But I mean, there's too many examples with a lot of these big brands. And I think that goes back to just kind of the weight and authority that some of these big brands have with an Old Spice, in the e-commerce side, like a Best Buy, obviously an Amazon. I think it's easier to say who's not doing it right, but there's, I think one example of not doing it right is when we used to interview people, we would, for an SEO position, we would make them do a presentation to us as if we were the clients for Chapstick was the website that we used to use. And if there was a content strategist coming in, we would be make recommendations on this site, because it was literally nothing on that site other than images of people. And obviously if your site is nothing but images, that's not going to do you any good at all on any device. So it's really making sure that you're describing what your product is and the lifestyle associated with it, what get your brand voice across, and doing it well and clearly.
I think if you buy us drinks, we could probably tell you some stories of people that aren't doing it well. Brands you'd be surprised by.
I can't tell you the name, but we do work with a Fortune 100 insurance company. And then we've done a lot of great work to actually get them to the top of voice search in their field, which is actually hard to even measure for a lot of companies and clients. But by working with them repeatedly and being persistent and making sure that they're rewriting content and organizing it accordingly, you can actually have some pretty good success already in voice search.
And what are the benefits of that success?
So they are outspent by their competitors, and so it's a very expensive space. You see some companies spend literally $1 billion in advertising. They are not one of those. They still spend a lot, but not that much. So being able to get out in front of answering people's questions and getting in the mindset earlier is really, really valuable. And also in a space that is really kind of driven on TV through humor, it's actually a chance to be informative and oh, okay, this company is really hilarious, but if I actually need an expert, I'm going to go to this group instead.
You don't want a cancer treatment from Seinfeld, pitching you something. So.
And so looking to the future, how large of a percentage would you say that voice SEO specifically or voice search specifically is going to be for you, say a year from now?
From a year from now, it's hard to say. I mean, it already informs pretty much everything that we do. The big stat is 50% of searches will be voice or potentially visual activated by 2020, and it's a big effort, especially for enterprises that have potentially thousands of pages or thousands of products. You have to start now to make an impact. You don't have to boil the ocean. You have to do it all at once, but start making some progress because it's just going to get harder.
And one thing, lots of times when we say voice search, people just automatically in their head think Amazon Alexa is what we're talking about when we say voice search. But things like Google Assistant is now on 500 million Android devices worldwide, and people are using that constantly. And again, this is a relatively new technology, so it's only going to explode from here. And with the keynote yesterday, with David from Amazon speaking, with like a keyboard, with typewriters, the computer, there's always like a skill that you had to learn in order to use it. With voice, it's not a skill; it's just how we communicate. And it's really literally taking down like those technological barriers, and we're seeing it especially like the uptick with like the older population, where lots of people like my parents, I can't show them how to use an iPhone, but they can all talk to an Alexa. So it's it's something it's just going to explode in use and functionality from here on.
And if you think this is a fad, while the exact iteration may change, this has been at least 30 years in the making. There was a great panel of women leaders in voice earlier, and some people had 20 years of experience in speech recognition, natural language. This is really critical because if you think about the next generation, kids are going to be growing up, they already are, speaking to devices. It's kind of odd for us because we had to like untrain ourselves from using keywords. This is really like what Ask Jeeves promised in the .com age. And so if you can think about how we really should interact with a computer, this is where we're going.
Yeah, I actually think there's probably more opportunity in the Google Home, Google Assistant space, potentially, than the Amazon Alexa. Just because watching Google taking down the friction around actually making things actionable from Assistant or Home is interesting to watch. And you don't have to build anything because Google has all this history with marketers and webmasters, and they have figured out over the years that it's really hard for us to get technical implementations in. And so they are trying to eliminate all that pain, where I don't know if we're seeing that necessarily with Amazon. And Google has more info about you, like a ton of info about you, because you've had a Google account longer, you've been searching longer. They're using all that data to make it super hyper relevant as an answer for you that I don't think Amazon has. So personally, I'm interested in kind of seeing how it dukes out. I know I'm an SEO, but I potentially think there might be more volume on the Google side and marketing opportunity potentially than on the Amazon side.
There's been a lot of, if you're also wondering like why voices happen now, it's not just because like, okay, kind of we've had the year of mobile, what's next? It's also that it's taken this amount of time for technology to mature. And so if you think about the advances that went into voice recognition and understanding, but also even just microphones, being able to filter out ambient noise is really important. And then having enough data to be able to understand and analyze what people are saying and how people respond. If you think back to the old days when Google had like a free 401 service, a lot of that, I don't know if they've ever said publicly, but I would have to imagine was to be able to get some voice data long before these were out there. And so being able to analyze that as companies and marketers should do. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll have your own data to analyze and improve upon.
I think Google Glass was just a focus group. Everybody was asking me, why are they doing wearables? I'm like, no, it's just because you have to look at stuff and talk about it. It was a data collection exercise. I don't think it's because they thought the wearable was going to be adopted. I mean, if you're not aware, Ray Kurzweil, who is like the premier expert in artificial intelligence, he created voice recognition technology. He's been employed by Google for like the last 9 years. When he got employed by Google, I was like, oh, you gotta watch this. And I don't think people are paying attention to that. He's got plenty of books. I've seen him speak. He wants to be a cyborg and get a chip embedded in his brain. He's a fascinating guy. So go pick up one of his books. But anyway, I think there's more potential on the Google side. I'm biased.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is like, why now? Like, why all of a sudden is voice everywhere? Like, why are we at this conference? And, as far as Google goes, I think it was last year where they finally hit a 95% word accuracy rate as far as like speech recognition. So that's pretty much at the threshold of human language and understanding. So now that Google's been able to achieve that leveraging machine learning, then, I mean, now the technology is like light years ahead from where it was 3 years ago.
Great, so let's open up to questions. Anyone have any questions for the panel?
Actually, this one's actually for you. I'm a developer, and we actually use Algolia tools.
Yes.
Is there any specific tools that you have for voice? And then secondary, I know there's a lot of privacy issues and things like that, and your service is a hosted service. Or is there any efforts to have like local search happen?
Yeah, so what's the company, by the way?
Chef Steps.
Okay, fantastic. So we can definitely talk more later, but try to make it as generic as possible. What our goals are really to enable and strengthen entity detection. That's going to be a very large one. When I search for, find me a red shirt for less than $100, right? We need to be able to know that you're searching for a shirt, perhaps the color is red, and less than $100 is a certain filter that you're going to want. So that's going to be a large part of it. We are thinking a lot about intent detection as well, because at some point you are going to want to add that to a cart, or add a recipe to a cart, or what have you. And you know, the speech to text, 95% accurate, that's not perfect, right? And so how do we handle those phonetic typos? I will give a little bit of a plug. I'm talking about that tomorrow at 2:30, so come check it out. In terms of the privacy, yeah, it's a huge thing industry-wide, really just across voice. We're putting these devices in our homes. We're putting multiple devices in our homes, and they're buffering at least. They're not necessarily sending it all the time to the server, but they are listening at all times. And so it's important, right? With us, we really care about that. We do have on-device, on mobile. It's not something many people know about, but we do have that. And there are other people thinking about this as well. A very good service is one based out of Paris as well, called Snips. Snips does speech to text. If you're building mobile apps, I highly recommend checking them out. It's on device, and so it's really interesting because it's privacy first, both IoT and on mobile, and you can also take into account what the users are saying and what the domain is to actually improve the speech to text. So I play Kesha, right? Over time, it will hear Kesha, 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 and it will bias that instead of cash or what have you. So that's, I think you're right. Yeah, privacy is going to be a big factor. Okay. Any other questions? All right.
So I'm coming here as a marketer, and I used to be a small business owner as well, so I'm not on the development side. So I just want to make sure I'm hearing what you're saying clearly. I mean, the focus for voice for a small business or marketing for small business is still on focusing on brand and creating content, because there's not a whole lot that we can do. Like, what should I be bringing back here to create for a small business as far as voice goes?
Yeah, as a local, sort of focusing on local SEO as a small business, you have all of the stuff we've been talking about for brand SEO. And if you had been at my session, you would have heard me complain about how local SEO is this whole other checklist right on top of it, unfortunately. And then Google's horrible about telling you how they update the rules, and they change them overnight on you, and then they roll out new features. It's horrific. But anyway, you have all of that. So it's the Google My Business, the Naps, the local citations, the local geo page, Google Posts, answering the stupid questions people are leaving for you, monitoring all of that. All of that will matter, because depending on what, most of the queries in the local end are directions, phone numbers, contact. It's all going to get pulled from Google My Business, right? So a lot of it is that, and maintaining it and tracking it. So if you're not using a tool like Bright Local or something to track your local rankings, I'd encourage you to do that too. And then follow the local SEOs in the space, because like I said, it seems like multiple times a week they make some local SEO change. It seems like it's pretty awful. And so if you're not, following Andrew Shotland and some of the other well-known SEOs in the space that do local stuff, I would totally add that to your reading.
And again, I would test. So not everyone's going to have a Google Home. So if you try it on an Amazon Echo, you'll have a completely different experience. So that's a space where you might want to leverage like a Yext that can work across platforms, or look at Yelp. How does your Yelp listing, if you're interacting with local customers, I don't know what kind of business you have. If you're selling products online, you can still improve your ranking through Amazon. But
Thank you.
yep.
I think I saw another hand.
name is Sabrina. I just want to know, can we have different results on mobile or on desktop? Yes, you confirm? And how can we handle this point?
How can you measure that, or no?
For voice, how can we fix this point to have this? For example, if I'm in the first position and if I'm the result done by my smart speaker, sure. How can I fix the fact that I will be also in the first position on the assistant on mobile?
Sure. So the first thing I would convince you to do is to measure. So try it and see what happens, and then look at those, in this case, probably websites, and see why. But long term, it's really about being concise, and you have to be authoritative. So you have to have links to your site. You have to have content that hopefully answers something in a very short amount. So there are tools you can use to monitor that, like a Bright Edge or Search Metrics, which helps a lot.
Thank you.
At a local level, do you think your mobile location would take precedence over your verbal request? So even if you're saying, I'm going on vacation somewhere and I'd like to know the best restaurant, would it still take preference over your IP address locally?
I actually have an example similar to that. It wasn't on mobile, but it was desktop, but it answered your question. So I was actually, when I was working at Ketchum, I was sitting on an IP in DC, but we were actually sharing an IP with New York, so whatever. I'm in a New York IP, and I'm logged into Google as I'm searching, as most people are. And my colleague it was for Toshiba Medical. My colleague is in Los Angeles, working for Toshiba Medical, right? So Google's them. We were looking for 3D prenatal ultrasounds. He gets a certain set of results. They're all LA. I was actually planning a trip with my mother to San Diego, or like a family trip. That's in my Gmail, by the way. And I'd had one kid, was not pregnant with a second, but Google had seen the pictures from the first kid. I'm logged into Google. Anyway, I Google 3D prenatal ultrasound, and instead of seeing New York or DC listings, I see San Diego locations where I can go get a 3D prenatal ultrasound with pictures. So a lot of the data around what's like on your device, I think, takes a lot of precedence over what you potentially put in as a keyword. And then one last tip about getting close to your users. The ranking tools that you can use give you unpersonalized results, which are what we can measure, but they're not what your audience is seeing either. It's unpersonalized, and everybody's personalized. So I would recommend, if you have the budget, that you actually do a small usability test to see if you appear for your target demo in certain locations when they look for you. So I did a usability test using user testing, recruited people on their mobile devices in DC and New York, and we were looking for it was like a competitor to Zipcar. It was Hertz, I think, actually, is what we're hoping would show up. But I recruited people that didn't have a car and just posed the question, like, you need to go grocery shopping, what would you look for? And had them articulate out loud what words they would use, and then saw the results that they got on their mobile devices. Radically different. Radically different. And the results that showed up that you thought were garbage websites, turns out everybody clicked on them. You probably want to be listed there because everybody liked it, even though you as a marketer thought that was a garbage website. It consistently ranked for everybody. Anyway, the insights that you can get from doing a search usability test, because everything is personalized, is huge. So if you have the budget, I would totally encourage you to be doing that kind of testing.
Pull out your phone and do a search. I can't stress the importance of that enough. You'll be surprised how different it looks, and the same with voice.
Great. I think we're running out of time, but where can people find you?
Oh, wostrategies.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. KWATIER is my main name.
So Adam Edwards, I'm at Reprise Digital. So adam.edwards@reprisedigital.com. Also on LinkedIn.
I'm M. Pappas at cmimedia.com, or just Mark Pappas on LinkedIn.
Great. And I'm at dcoats, or you can visit talkingtocomputers.com if you want to follow my writing on Voice First and developing for Voice First. Thanks, everyone.